If you're looking for entertainment, come to Gala. Whether you're ready to jump and jive and let your inner dancing queen shine, or put your feet up with a baker's bun and a cup of tea. At Gala, it's always time for fun. Gala Bingo, where a little joy goes a long way. 18 plus terms apply. Please gamble responsibly.
Pay attention. The ferry leaves at 10 a.m. Roads are busy.
Great.
Dad, pack the boot. Suitcases, Tetris style.
Yeah.
Rosie, got your teddy?
Uh-huh.
No going back this time. Honey, how's the car?
Windows clean, car wax, carpets.
I meant the tyres.
Oh, sorted them at Quick Fit last week.
Brilliant. If things go to plan, it'll be smooth sailing.
Planning the perfect getaway this summer? Make sure your tyres are up for the job. Book today at quickfit.com or your local centre. Quick Fit. Drive away happy every time.
Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital?
Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast.
Hi!
Welcome to the Port Charles 411. A little bit different today. We had the opportunity to speak with Vincent Irizarry.
That was so much fun. And I know I say that every time we do an interview, but it was so much fun. He's so easy to listen to. He could have talked for another 6 hours and I would have just sat here and absorbed everything that he said.
Yeah. And we talked about this when we talked about Anna on the show. Like, I did not watch All My Children, so I was nervous about talking to him because I'm like, I'm not going to have anything to talk to this man about.
And then he mentioned...
And then Amanda only said like 2 words.
Because it was, so I know you're not supposed to mix the characters with the actors, but talking to him was exactly what I feel like talking to David would have been back then. And he's just beautiful. So I'll sit here and stare at him while he talks all day long. Is perfectly fine with me.
He definitely talked more than we did. It was really good. But I mean, he was so just generous with his time, and the stories that he told were just amazing. So,
and now he knows what your basement looks like.
You have to go to the end to find out why we're talking about that. So we hope that you enjoy this conversation with Vincent Irizarry. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep. I'm Shannon.
Amanda, sorry.
Shannon, Amanda. Hi, Shannon. Hi, Amanda. Well, it's good to see you both.
You too. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm gonna mute my phone so if in case it rings, we're not gonna hear that. So anyway, well, how you doing? Happy
Hi, how
Tuesday.
are you? Yeah.
I'm well, thank you. I'm sort of trying to get this so that it looks like it's a good way to do it. Does it look all right?
It looks perfectly fine. Yep.
Now, I'm assuming you're doing this, but you're going to do it as a podcast. It's not going to be a visual, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay. So it doesn't matter. I could have stayed in my pajamas. Damn.
Yep. Exactly.
I just worked out a little while ago. I showered. It was like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, anyway, so what's up? What do you want to talk about?
Everything.
Yeah.
Well, first, how was your trip with your daughter? You said that you were going to New York to visit her.
It was wonderful. It was really very special. My daughter, she lives in Brooklyn, Queens, by Bushwick and Ridgewood is right next to each other. But she's lived in Brooklyn basically for 10 years now. And I went there because it was actually a solemn occasion. My cousin, Lauren, she was 38, but she was Sienna, my daughter Sienna, they were like best friends for the last 10 years, and she moved to Brooklyn. Lauren lived in Brooklyn and was the manager of a restaurant there, a bar and restaurant, and she passed away a few months ago. And she was very much loved by the people in that community because she was a manager at that bar for 8 years, and so many people knew her, and they all funded me a page, and there was a muralist that's a very well-known muralist there, and she painted 2 murals of her in Bushwick, and that were stunning, absolutely beautiful. One at the bar that's there, and another one on one of the streets in Bushwick that's huge, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. So they were just finished recently, so I went back to see my daughter and go see the murals, and it was very special. It was really special. So it was that kind of a whirlwind visit. I left on Tuesday, arrived Wednesday morning, saw my daughter Wednesday afternoon and evening, and then left Thursday. So it was that quick. But and it was very spontaneous that it happened at that time. So everything worked out to do it. So, but it was great to see her and wonderful to celebrate my cousin and in memory and tribute to her. So that was very special. Yeah.
That sounds like a beautiful tribute. You know?
Yeah, it's really special. If you go on my Instagram page, you can see the murals themselves. They're really spectacular. And the muralist actually is going to travel down to New Orleans because that was also Lauren's favorite city. And she's going to do another mural down there for her. And my daughter, Aria, who lives in New Orleans, she graduated from Loyola there, and she stayed there since she graduated. She's helping them to find a location for them to do the next one. So it could be great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think I did see them actually the other day, but I didn't notice what they were. You know, it's
okay.
You know, you're scrolling through Instagram and you're like, oh, that's pretty. You know.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was my trip to New York, and I was happy I was able to do it. And it was great to see my daughter, Sienna. She's, it goes by so quickly. I've got 4 children, and she's my second oldest. My oldest is my son, Ash, and he has 2 daughters, my 2 granddaughters, over the last 2.5 years. It's been like that. So that's really special. And then my daughter, Aria lives in New Orleans, as I mentioned. And my son, Elias, he's going to school at the Citadel in South Carolina.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, this is his freshman year. And and I went to visit him about 2 weeks ago down there in Charleston. And we had a great time. It was good to see him. So, just been bouncing around and doing things and trying to get some things done here,
Yeah. Was he involved in the junior ROTC or anything in high school?
He was. He was born and raised in Montclair, New Jersey. And when he was about, 14, 15, he and his mother moved from there to South Carolina. And when he was there, he joined the junior ROTC. And it really did change his whole worldview and perspective. And it just changed his whole life. It was like a major turn for him there. Mm-hmm. And he loved it. He loved the junior ROTC. He loved the discipline of it. And when I tell you about my son Elias, he would be the last person I would have thought would have been in this type of a regimen where you're having physical training on a regular basis, getting up at 5 a.m, going out and do PT. And I'm just telling you, it's just shocking to me because he was the kid his whole life. He's like a computer whiz. Mm-hmm. And he would be in front of the computer all day if he could. We had to pull him off all the time. He was not the kind of kid, and we tried to get him. The most he ever did was Taekwondo for a couple of years, and he did well with it. But he was not the kind of kid to play soccer or football or baseball or anything. It just wasn't for him. So to see him become this type of kid where he's physically training on a regular basis, he looks like a totally different person than he did 3 years ago. And and he even became the sergeant major in his junior RTC. He was overseeing about 200 other kids in the junior RTC.
Wow,
so
that's a huge program. Both of our kids, she has 2 kids in it, and my son's in it with her oldest daughter.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
And where are you both located?
We're in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
In Pittsburgh. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
Pittsburgh was a huge Guiding Light fan base there. When I was doing Guiding Light back in the 80s, it was huge.
Oh, yeah?
In Pittsburgh. Oh, yeah. I couldn't go through the airport without it, a commotion happening all the time. It was like this character Lou Jack that I did back then. Every time I went to Pittsburgh, and the people were wonderful. I loved them. It was fantastic. And I did an appearance once at a ski resort that was outside of Pittsburgh, if I remember correctly.
Seven Springs?
Probably Seven Springs. That sounds familiar.
Springs. Or Nemacolin, but I would imagine Seven Springs
Probably.
more.
I did an appearance there at one time. This is, like I said, back in the mid to late 80s, around that time. And it was great. And I've done in Pennsylvania, different places, like Erie, Pennsylvania. I did one there years ago. And with this huge mall that's Prussia,
King of Prussia.
King of Prussia, which is an odd name for a mall. But, but that's the location, I guess. Is that the name of the town, King of Prussia?
Yeah.
It's still a strange name. But
Pennsylvania has really interesting
the King of Prussia is the name you call your town.
Right.
All right, I'll go with that for whatever reason. But yeah. I love Pennsylvania. So that's wonderful. So your children are a part of that too. And how do they enjoy it?
Love it. And actually, my son sounds very similar to yours. He draws nonstop. I mean, that's all that he does. He's done swimming. He's did a little bit of karate, but
Yeah.
he loves it. And so my son's a senior and her oldest daughter's a senior. So they're starting to get into that. And, I'm like, are you going to continue with ROTC? And he's like, yeah. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. And it was fun going to see my son. I mean, it is a different time. It's not your usual freshman year with the whole thing with COVID, and there are more restrictions than they have in the past. The first week that they have, it's a challenge week, for the freshmen, and afterwards usually there's like an outing to go to the beach, and they can do that. So it's a lot. In the first few weeks, they weren't even allowed to socialize outside of their rooms with other students, because they wanted to make sure they contained and kept everybody safe, because they were going through school like regular school, and they didn't want to have to shut it down. So they were doing that, but they've loosened it up a bit. And that was another whirlwind trip. I literally, but not every weekend, because he's a freshman, he doesn't always have leave on the weekends. So I found out at 3:00 in the morning on Friday morning that he had leave, and I didn't sleep until I found out. And then he said he had leave. So I literally went to the airport and did standby at 6 in the morning to go see him without sleep, and flew through the night. And I got there, and it worked out well, because it was mandatory. He had to go to some football game that the Citadel was playing that day, but he was going to be done around 3:30. I got to see him at 4:00. I landed at like 2:30, went to the hotel. So it all worked out. So I got to see him that Saturday night and all day Sunday, and I left on Monday. So I was able to see him. It was that kind of a whirlwind trip again. So, yeah. And it's interesting because he has to wear his uniform outside of the school within a 10-mile radius. So anything we did in Charleston, he has to wear his uniform. He's not allowed to take it off. So, we're walking all around, and he's wearing his uniform, and we see others that are doing that too in the city. But he was very concerned, because we went to a barbecue place, a well-known barbecue restaurant there that he wanted to try, but he was like really worried that it might splatter or something. So we had to make sure that he had the pulled pork instead, and then he could put as much as he wanted on each bite. So he had to be careful. So he wasn't like eating ribs and stuff like that, but it was fun. We had a great time. It was great.
That would be interesting to see the uniform with the bib.
You're right.
Yeah, I know. That's true. It was pretty funny.
So your kids are all spread out, but you're originally from New York.
I am. I was born and raised in New York. I was born in Queens. Lived there till I was 8 years old, and grew up on Long Island. I lived in Manhattan there, but after school, I went to school at Berklee College of Music in Boston. And and after that, I moved to Manhattan. I lived in Manhattan on and off. I lived in Manhattan for probably about 15 years, and also lived out in New Jersey as well. When I was doing All My Children, I started in the city, and then I moved out to Montclair, New Jersey, and we lived there for 11 years. But I was traveling back and forth from Montclair to Los Angeles, because at that time I started doing Young and the Restless. And then the whole show, All My Children, moved to Los Angeles. And I was traveling again back and forth from Montclair to Los Angeles, because we weren't sure what was going to happen with the show, whether it was definitely going to stay on, if I was going to keep living in LA. But I've been here ever since. It's been 10 years. So I moved out here just before, in December of 2009. So it was right before 2010. We started filming here on January 4th, if I remember correctly, of 2010. And the reason I remembered that is because that was literally the 40th anniversary of the show. It was on January 4th.
Oh.
And we started here on that day. And I was in the first scenes with Rebecca Buddig in the new studio. We did the first scenes of the day starting there, and with Greenlee. And so that's where we are. And I've been here since. So. That's it.
And for the General Hospital fans listening, she's also hated.
Oh, she's hated on General Hospital?
She is-ish. She keeps coming and going.
Oh, wow. But her character, what's the name of her character on there?
Hayden Barnes.
Hayden, okay. So it wasn't a rollover, a crossover from All My Children.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I've been told that ABC now has the full rights to all the characters from the two shows. That's what I've been told. I don't know if that's true. I know that at one point they did not, because Prospect Park had licensed the show.
Yep.
And that was just a mess, the whole thing. And it was such a shame because the All My Children online version was actually excellent. It was so well done. The writing was fantastic. The casting, everything was great. The studio was beautiful. The way it was shot, the story was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. And they got into a legal fight with ABC. That was like a $125 million lawsuit, and they shut everything down. But apparently, from what I understand, that court case it's been dismissed like for a couple of years now.
Okay.
So that was my understanding, and that's what people have said. Even though the cast members that I've spoken to, their understanding is that ABC has the rights to the character. So who knows? That's why I wasn't sure if she was a crossover. I didn't know. So.
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting because so we had 3 characters from One Life to Live come over as their characters, right. But then GH killed 2. Then Nora Buchanan still comes over every now and again. They all left one day and then came back as different characters.
Right. That was in the midst of the whole thing that happened. That was part of the lawsuit, from my understanding. I mean, I'm not an authority in this, but my understanding was that they had taken the characters from One Life to Live because the executive producer, Frank, was also the executive producer on One Life to Live. And when he was hired to be the executive producer for General Hospital, and Prospect Park had been dragging and getting production going, it was strange. The timing of it was, we finished shooting sometime, I think it was in 2011 at ABC when we were doing it here. It was about a year and a half after we started. And we were supposed to start right away for the online thing, but it never happened. And they kept telling us it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And then they just stopped telling us. And about a year, a little close to a year and a half went by. Well, it was just over a year, like 15 months later, I got a call from Ginger, who was one of the producers on All My Children at the time, that they were resurrecting it for the online version. This was in December, and I think it was like 2013, maybe, or 2012. And they were bringing it back, but they had to get it up before the last week of February. They had to be in production by the last week of February. This was in December, I'm telling you, right?
2 months.
So in 2 months they had to get up, and I said to Ginger, I said, okay, so, well, all right, who are the writers? We don't have any writers yet. We're talking to several writers. I'm like, okay, if 2 months is where are we doing this? He said, well, we're looking for a studio. So I'm like, you don't have a studio? No, we don't have a studio. So you don't have sets or anything. You don't have a production office. No, we're doing that all right now. And I'm like, you're going to do this in 2 months? She said, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. And she got it done. I mean, she was brilliant at it. And that last week before, because if they didn't do it by the end of that time, that was when the licensing period was going to end, and they were going to lose the rights to the show. Not only did that last week of February, were we all walking on these brand new sets that were built in this beautiful soundstage in Connecticut with the production office and everything else, the scripts were fantastic. Everybody, we were very excited about it. And the same thing for One Life to Live. They did it both simultaneously. So it was crazy. I couldn't believe that we did it, but then they got into their lawsuit. And that's why, because of that duration of time between when we finished filming for ABC, it was almost a year and a half, basically. And during that time, Frank decided they weren't using the characters, so he took them over to General Hospital. But then that became part of the lawsuit, and Prospect Park was basically claiming that they were prohibiting their success by using the characters. That was one of the issues that I understood. So that's what Frank and the head writers at the time, they decided in a wise way, okay, let the characters walk off for a couple of days and come back as different people.
Totally. So many unresolved.
It's like right out of soap dish, you know? Honestly, it is. It's like, it's crazy. I just think it's really funny. But that was very smart of them. They did that because then they couldn't complain about it. It's like, all right, you have the characters, but the actors didn't want to go do the online one because now they're working on the network show. And, they have every right to make a decision about that. That's their right. So anyway, it's kind of funny.
No, that is. So if the lawsuit's cleared, then David could come to General Hospital.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, certainly it seems like if the character is under their rights, that they have a right to do it, then they could do it if they so desire. It's their show. They could do what they want with it or not. And there are so many fans that have been supportive of that as a possibility and been very outspoken and, rallying and, on social media and trying to get me on that show. And that's very sweet of them. That's great. I have no control over that. That's fantastic. And I'm touched by their loyalty, their support of me and my work and the character's relationship with Anna. That was very special, that relationship. And we certainly have our history, especially considering the fact that Leora, our daughter, passed away. I heard your podcast about it, so you did finally get it, why the name was Leora, one of you, because you didn't watch it as much. And
I didn't. I never watched All My Children. Amanda did.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was all brand new for me.
Right, and I certainly understand why you would have been confused by the name Leora, because we were too. We were like, I get it. I know it's because we want to honor Leo, that was played by Josh Duhamel, by the way. Mm-hmm. We want to honor his character. My character David wants to honor Leo and remember him. But alas, we didn't have a boy, so we had a girl, so we named her Leora. And it's a weird name, but anyway. But that was different. And I also remember you saying something there too in the podcast about how it was a very intense storyline for a long time and very upsetting, and it touched people on a very personal level, especially people like you both spoke about this, that had a personal effect on you because of your life experiences. And I can assure you that both Finola and I, we even looked at each other one day. This was after it's like two and a half months, that storyline, man. And we both looked at each other and were like, this is exhausting. And we both wondered, is this even entertaining anymore? It's truly probably one of the most devastating stories to tell when you're dealing with the life of an infant. And the loss of an infant. I mean, if you want to bring any truth to it, of course, it's like you're beating the hell out of yourself for months. It went on for months, and we even said something, executive producer, I mean, how much longer are we going to be doing this? Because this is painful. And we would assume that there are many people in the audience who are feeling exactly the same way, because we were questioning that. I mean, it's different in a movie, because in a movie, it's a small little portion of a 2-hour film, and then it goes on and you see the growth from it, or however the characters develop from that tragic experience. This is a long-running story, and it went on for months. So it was tough. It was really tough. Absolutely. So
you definitely did it justice, though. I feel like the storyline completed itself whenever they ended and watched her walk out the door and shut the door. You could feel the two of you, get your piece with it.
Well, thank you. And I mean, I got to tell you, Finola's always been brilliant, and she brings such beautiful nuance to her work on any story, and she absolutely did with that as well. We had a good long run together as the characters on that show, and oddly enough, we actually bookended the beginning of the relationship on the show and our last scenes on the show with two historic moments in New York City history. Our first date as a character of David and Anna that we were taping actually happened the morning of 9/11.
Oh, wow.
We went to work that day, both of us, knowing that we had these great, flirtatious, fun scenes that we were going to be doing. We were the first scenes up that morning. I lived in New Jersey, as I mentioned, so the last thing that I would always see when you drive through the Helix going to Lincoln Tunnel, the Helix is a circular thing. The last thing you see is the World Trade Center. It's right in front of your eyes. That's what you would see at that time. And it was a perfectly clear, beautiful day that day. And we were first scenes up, so we were there at the studio at like 7:30 in the morning. And after we got dressed and we went in to get touched up for makeup, this is about 8:45 or so, 8:50. And we went into makeup, and while we were getting touched up, because we were going to go up on the set, just the two of us, and run our lines up there. We were running lines in my dressing room before that, and it was fun, flirtatious, and playful. We were really excited about the scenes. Go to get touched up, and somebody comes in the makeup room, and they say, turn on the TV. It looks like somebody crashed into the World Trade Center. So they turned on the TV in the makeup. They turned on the news. Actually, the TV was on in the makeup room, and at that first, I don't know if you remember, the first shots that people saw on the news was a long shot. It was from far away, so it looked like it was a part of the World Trade Center that was scorched. Okay, it was, you couldn't tell it was a jetliner. It looked like just a plane had crashed.
Yeah, they thought it was just like a personal plane that, because that's happened before. You know, that personal. Yeah.
And I remember somebody saying, well, whoever did that must not have seen it. And I said, it's like 110-mile visibility out there today. Whoever did that did it on purpose. I thought it was like a private plane. That person committed suicide. That's what we were thinking. Right. So we go upstairs and we're on our set running the lines together. And the director came on the set. He started working with us too. And all the crew was watching the monitors on the floor. And that's when we saw the close-up of the second jetliner crash into the towers. Everybody, people literally like were shocked. People, one person was screaming, like, oh my gosh, every freak. We stopped, we were watching and they were showing a replay what happened. It was like, oh my gosh, it was a jetliner crash into the World Trade Center. And because we're ABC, the producers that were on the set had their headsets set. They were able to communicate with the newsroom, and they were finding out that there were other planes that were missing. Oh, wow. And then we realized we were under attack. And the director then tried to rally everybody, let's get back to work. And Finola and I then are doing these same one-time playful, flirtatious scenes in rehearsal, like we were going to tape them. And totally different state of mind now. We're not in that place. And we both like looked at each other and said, what the hell are we doing? This doesn't feel right now. Yeah, right. And then the first tower collapsed. And we were, then there was like hysteria. It was one of the extras that was on the show, a woman, she had dropped her son off at a daycare like just blocks away from the towers. She went hysterical. People were crying, screaming. One of the principal actors, I'm not going to say who it is because it's her privacy, but she lived down there at the Battery Park, and her brother would be going into the subways there in New York to go to work around that time. She was hysterical. So we stopped everything. Producers came up on the floor, all the crew, we were called together to hold hands. And Nadine Aronson, who was one of our producers at the time, she said a prayer with all of us on the soundstage. And they announced that they were stopping production for the day because some of the crew was going to be taken by the news division. That was my first day working with Finola as the characters coming together, okay, in the set, in the story. Our last day of work together was when we were just about to do our scenes, and we had the major blackout in New York City. Oh. That was a blackout that was all of the Northeast coast, all up to Canada. Mm-hmm. And right before we're about to do our scenes, everything blacked out. The whole studio went dark. And at first, it was concerning because there were some people that were very emotional because they thought there was another attack. We thought that some people thought that it was another one. Some of us were just waiting to get more information. But it was crazy. That was our last day working together, and our first day, the characters working together as a couple coming together. That was bookended the storyline with me and Finola. It's crazy. Yeah. So.
It's tough.
Yeah. And I just, even this year when 9/11 happened, there was a thing on Instagram saying, do you remember where you were on 9/11? And I sent an inbox DM to Finola with her, with a heart and remembrance of it, where we were. That's all. Crazy, huh?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It seemed like I brought you guys down.
No. It's just everyone has their story of what that was that day, and.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those moments, obviously, that all of us will always remember where we were and what was happening at that time. But that significantly had to do with my working with Finola and the characters coming together and ending, which is interesting. So, and I also I remember on your podcast that you both were surprised by certain people that you were seeing on the show, like Michael B. Jordan.
That was me.
Yeah, well, Michael B. was on the show, and an interesting story about that was that it was actually Chadwick Boseman was cast in that role before.
Oh.
Chadwick And it was interesting because I didn't even realize that it was him because it was so many years ago. This was like 2002 maybe, or 2004, around that time, when like Chadwick was cast for as Reggie, that Michael B. Jordan played. He was only on the show for like a week or two, and they let him go. And I was shocked by that, and so was Finola, because we both thought he was a fantastic actor. He was amazing in the scenes that we did together. And I didn't know the story. I just figured they wanted somebody younger because Michael B. Jordan came in, he was 16. He was 10 years younger. I mean, if you look at their ages, they're 10 years apart. So he was 10 years younger. So I think the story was basically that they wanted somebody younger to play the role. And Michael B. was fantastic as well. They both are wonderful, brilliant actors, both of them. But it was interesting because after his passing, that video was sent around online, social media, of Chadwick speaking a commencement speech at a college. And he brought up how he was let go from that show. And it apparently, from what he said, is that he had a meeting after he started working on the show with the head writers. And it wasn't unsolicited, his perception of it. They were actually invited him to share what his thoughts were about the character. And he said that he was concerned because he felt like they were writing his character in a stereotypical manner. And which is really strange. It is on video. You could hear him say this in the speech. Next thing he knew, he was being called from his agents that they had let him go. They thought that he was going to be difficult. And it was stunning to him because, as I said, it wasn't unsolicited. He didn't just go there to say, I need to talk to you about this. They invited to speak with him and was curious about what he thought of the character, and actually we're talking about how wonderful he was doing in the role. And they found, and his agents even said, this is what he said at the commencement. His agent said at the time, it's going to be tough for you to get a job for a while because people are got the impression now that you're difficult. And it's just odd that would have happened. I didn't know the inside story until I heard that. And I was like, oh, that's outrageous. I never would have imagined something like that happening on the show. And he was fantastic. And we had this one scene, so we had several scenes together in those weeks because I worked opposite him in the hospital. And there was a scene where he grabbed Finola and he was holding him by knife point. And both Finola and I, after scenes, he was like, he's good. He's really good. I said, yeah, he's excellent, really talented. And the next thing he knew, he was gone. So that was strange. Yeah. And also, I don't know if you know, like Amanda Seyfried was on the show.
I didn't know that. No.
She was on the show at the same time as Levin Ramblin. She was on the show. And I think she won an Emmy. She was playing Jackson's daughter with autism. That was Levin. And yeah, she was fantastic. There was so many. Everybody was on the show at the same time. Abigail Spencer was on the show at that same time. Judy Wilson was brilliant as a casting director, and really was for that show. There was so many talented young actors that came on that show at that time. Yeah, they were all there. Amanda Seyfried was on at that time. She was wonderful. And such a sweetheart, really good young lady. So
didn't Sarah Michelle Gellar get started on All My Children too, or was that Bold and Beautiful?
Who was that?
Sarah Michelle Gellar. She got started on a soap too.
Yes, she was on it before I was on it. She was on it when I was on Guiding Light, and I knew her back then too because we both were taking singing lessons from the same singing teacher, Sarah Michelle.
Oh, that's
and she would always be there. She'd be at the singing lessons with her mother because she was young. She was a teenager at the time.
I didn't know that she sang. Huh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you sang either until I found it on YouTube.
Yeah, I did. I did it for years. I studied and sang with the Orchestre de Lyon in Lyon, France, and did some cabarets. I produced a cabaret with Bobby Eakes and Walt Willey. We did something together, and we also did it at B.B. King's. We did it at some casinos and stuff, and yeah, we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, it's cool.
You have a great voice.
Well, thank you. Thank you. A little tired of right now, but thanks.
If it was up to you, would you reboot All My Children or would you go to General Hospital?
That's an interesting question. I think for the fans, for the audience, I think it would be great if they were able to reboot All My Children. I think they would especially appreciate that. And I think, and one of the major reasons is, at the very least, there was never any closure during
Right.
that story. And I mean, remember, we did it for 40 years, and we were supposed to finish the show for ABC. But then Prospect Park came, and they said they wanted to continue the show online for iTunes and Hulu. We had an ending, okay? The head writer at the time had a final script for the show, and they trashed it when Prospect Park came. They decided that Lorraine Broderick was the head writer. They decided that they needed her to write beyond that, obviously, to continue the story. And that's what she did. And that's when we went online to do it. And then when online, we were shooting in May, and that's when we were told that we were going to go on hiatus for 5 weeks because they were going to catch up on some writing. They had to write more scripts and everything. Fine. But that's when everything was actually erupting with ABC and the lawsuit was developing. And we were being told then, like after 5 weeks, like every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, we're coming back in like 3 weeks. We're coming back in 3 weeks. So trust me, it's coming back. This went all the way till November from May. And then we got the call that it was not coming back in November. So we had no closure. There was no storyline, no finality to the story that people have been watching for 40 plus years. So that was upsetting. That was upsetting. So I think the audience would love a continuation. And then if it ever goes off the air, that they have a true ending to the story.
Right.
So that they can close that photo album for good and give it a kiss by Agnes Nixon. That's all, you know. I think that would be great. But in the absence of that, I would love to go back go back to work and continue to develop the character of David Hayward. I love that character. He was a fantastic character. And I'd love to see, you know, how, if they did do it, how they would write it, and hopefully how show the growth of the character as well, and the maturity in the absence of all these years, and that the audience hasn't seen him, see what kind of a person he's developed into. That would be cool. So anyway, you never know. So
I have it written in my head.
I was going to say, we need a
oh, you do?
Well, okay, so I never watched All My Children, so all I know is from what I was able to watch on YouTube. But at one point, David Hayward was doing something with memories. Like he kept talking about something with memories.
Something with memories.
One of the drugs.
One of the drugs he was doing had something to do with, like, it would take away memories or something like that. Right.
Oh, right. I mean, he did dabble in pharmaceutical research.
Well, we could really use that a lot.
Yes, I mean, we all can. And he came up with the Libidazone. If I remember correctly, maybe it has something to do with the story with Maria, when Maria came back on the show, and that she had amnesia at the time, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And it was interesting because you also brought up in the podcast that I didn't know who she was, and wasn't aware that she was Maria Gray, or whatever the character there was. I think it was Maria Gray, and that she was Edmund's wife at one time. I didn't know that. And I remember, because that's the way they wrote it, and I remember saying to the executive producer at the time, haven't I seen her picture at Gray Manor somewhere in the last few years? You didn't pay attention to it. You just walk past. I'm like, that picture is pretty obvious. I mean, it's like a picture of her, this beautiful woman that right there in front of you goes, you didn't notice. I'm like, I think David would have noticed. Well, for the sake of the story, you didn't notice. I'm like, okay. So it's one of those moments where they like have you suspend your own sense of reality for the sake of the story. I'm like, okay, I have pictures all over the place, and probably exactly. Even in the bathroom there was a picture of her. You're isolated in a bathroom with a picture of Maria Gray, but you don't notice her. So,
right.
And she's Eva LaRue is a pretty striking woman. I don't think I would miss a picture of her. So.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
But there was there's still kind of the residual effects. But a couple years ago, there was a whole storyline where this doctor was doing a double blind study with twins and swapping their memories. So guess who was involved in that? Anna and Alex.
Oh.
So
okay.
Wouldn't it have been great if you were the doctor who was helping this other doctor that we know was involved, but you were the one who was behind it all?
That's interesting. I don't know. I only get little excerpts of General Hospital, and it's oftentimes on on Instagram or Twitter or something, where a fan will place a few scenes or here and there.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that about the story, but that would have been interesting.
Because now Anna has a son, even though we're convinced it's Alex's son, because Anna doesn't remember having him. But then Anna never talks about Leora, so that would explain why she didn't. Yeah. Because you would have removed that memory because it was so painful. Yes.
Yes.
Well, I do know. I do remember. This was a few years ago, and whenever anything that comes close to the story with David on GH happens, fans write to me throughout the whole time. This happened today, and they write it on Twitter. It's like an open thing. It's not like a DM or anything. And one time, I guess they did mention David and Leora on the show. This was a few years ago that this had happened. So. That was the only time that I remembered that they said that, because all these fans were like, they just mentioned David Hayward on General Hospital and Leora, So they were very excited about it, but obviously it was just a story point having to do with what was happening with her at the time. So, but she has a son now.
Supposedly. She has a son,
but it may not be hers, it may be Alex's. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because she doesn't remember ever having him. So
that's pretty funny. That was interesting with the stories on there. I remember the story with me and Erica, with Susan Lucci, where her face got ripped off in a car accident in a blizzard that we had together. That I was driving her and we were fighting. It was a blizzard, and we didn't see the truck that was stopped in the middle of the road because of the blizzard. And it was beautifully shot. Connell O'Brien did a fantastic job shooting it. And they shot it in a film look where you remove like a frame from every few seconds, so it gives a sense of it looks like a film, and it was beautifully shot. But in that scene, that some lathes were sticking out from the back of a truck, went through the window, ripped off Erica's face, the side of her face. So she was, the Phantom of the Opera on the show for a few months with the mask, half mask, and everything. And I brought her to Brazil to have her face restored. And it was through Dr. Faxinella, who was a Brazilian doctor. So we always thought that was funny. His name was Dr. Faxinella, to refashion her face. We thought that was really funny. It was like, yeah, you had to name Dr. Faxinella. Yeah, so anyway, but it's funny when you have these stories on these shows. They're entertaining, they're exciting. It was great, so.
I have definitely talked way too much.
Feel free. Ask questions. Ask away. Go ahead. Amanda, do you have something you want to ask?
I don't know. I'm a little starstruck because I did watch All My Children. So I was very excited whenever you said you would talk to us.
Aw, that's so sweet. Thank you, Annie. That's great. And Shannon, hopefully now you'll catch up to all the shows of 40 years. From this point on. Okay.
I want to, though. That's the thing. I'm like, it was really good.
Yeah, it was great. We had a wonderful cast. I was only supposed to be on the show for 3 months. It was a 3-month role, basically. And it was, I was hired, and I was still living at the time I was living in Los Angeles, and my daughter Aria was just born. It just worked out. My manager contacted me and said, is there any chance that you might be able to be in New York, because all my children would like to meet with you? And it just happened that weekend. We were having my daughter's baptism on Long Island with my family. I said, I'll just stay another day or two. I can see them on Monday. And absolutely. So I went in to meet with them, and sat with Jean Dodari Burke, who was the executive producer at the time, and Judy Wilson, and talked for like 45 minutes. I had a great talk with them. And at the end of it, they offered me the role. I didn't have to audition or anything. They just said, we really would like you to do it. Can you do this for 3 months? I said, yeah, I'll make it work. And it turned into a 13-year character. And it was just, it was a great role. We saw the potential of it immediately. So that's why they extended the character. And actually, I turned down the first offer because I had made a promise to my daughter, Sienna, who was now living in Los Angeles at the time. She and I were going back and forth because when I was on Guiding Light, she was flying back like every month and a half with a nanny to see me for 2 weeks. And I was flying to see her like 2 times, sometimes in the interim. And I moved to Los Angeles to be closer to her. I lived a block away from where she lived. And when I first told her I was doing the job in New York, she got panicked because she equated it with separation. And I promised her at the time, I said, this is not a long-term job. It's just for 3 months. I promise I'll be back. And I said, you can come visit me and we can hang out and enjoy ourselves in New York again, as we did in the past. So when they offered me before the end of 3 months, they wanted to do a long-term contract with me. And at first, of course, I was tempted. I had a newborn baby and didn't have a job to go back to. They were offering me good money, and it was a steady job again. And for a week, I was negotiating with them, with my agents. And then I contacted Jean Didari Burke and said, I got to talk with you. Went and met with her in office, and I told her I can't take the job. She said, why? And I said, because I promised my daughter. I promised her I wasn't going to be doing this job for long term. And she says, is there anything we could do to make it happen? And I said, I can't imagine anything. I can't do it. My agents are calling me and they're like, what are you doing? You're turning down this job. I'm like, I promised my daughter. I can't do it. I cannot do it. So 5 months went by, and Judy Wilson called me after 5 months, and she says, what can we do to make this work? And I said, I don't know. I'm here. Oh, before that though, I went back to LA and I sat my daughter down and I told her, I said, I want you to know that this had happened, but I made a promise to you and I wanted to keep that promise. But I then told her, I said, but I can't make that promise to you all the time. I said, I did make it, so I want to honor it. But there are jobs that come up sometimes that I might be in Vancouver or Miami or Chicago or New York, and I can't keep turning down jobs. But because I promised you, I decided this is what I'm going to do. So Judy Wilson calls 5 months later, and she's like, what can we do to make it work? I don't know. My ex-wife, Signe Coleman, was also living here with my daughter in Los Angeles, a block away. And she's like, would she be interested in doing any show in New York? I said, I'm sure she would. I didn't know if I wanted it to be my show. Not an easy thing to do. We work with your ex-wife. Not the best environment. So she said, let me get back to you. And at that time, Guiding Light was casting. Cynthia Watros had left the show, and they were bringing somebody on that was supposed to be a double of her or something. So Judy Wilson talked to Guiding Light, and they said, we'd love to see her on tape. So they taped her in Los Angeles, liked her audition, flew her to New York, and did a screen test with her, and she got the part in New York.
That works.
So it felt like, Judy Wilson and God moved heaven and earth to make this happen. I went to New York to go start on All My Children. My ex-wife, Signe, and my daughter, Sienna, moved to New York a week later, and we all lived in New York and worked on different shows, and it worked out. And then the character, like I said, was 12, 13 years working on the show. Wow. So it's crazy. So I kind of felt like it was meant to be, Mm-hmm. And it was pretty amazing. It was a great run. I loved the story, loved the character, and of course I'd love to resurrect him again. It would be wonderful. So anyway.
Who's been your favorite character that you've done?
That's a tough question. David would certainly be up there. And also my first one was Lou Jack on Guiding Light, and that character was extraordinary. I loved that character. And I think also because of the time of my life, I started working as Lou Jack at 23 years old. And I felt that Lou Jack was closest to my personality and my nature. So I really identified with Lou Jack a lot. And it was my first foray into television. I had been doing theater for 6 years before. That was the first job. And that was only supposed to be a 3-day job too. And that character just exploded. It became kind of like a phenomenon in my life. And it was the foundation of my entire professional career in television, frankly. So Lou Jack absolutely would be one of my favorite. David Hayward. And I loved Deimos on Days of Our Lives. Deimos had a lot of potential as well. And I think it's basically, it starts with the backstory of a character, and if the backstory of the character is strong, is solid, something where an actor could really sink their teeth into it, that's a great foundation to start from and to build from. And I felt with Lou Jack, with David Hayward, and with Deimos, all of those backstories of who they were, where they came from, why they are the person that they are today, that was fantastic. And I loved playing those characters. Every character is great though. I love anytime I get to work is wonderful. I shot a Western recently, which was interesting. And I attribute that to my pandemic look, which you can see. I with my long hair and my beard and mustache. And I said to my girlfriend, Yvonne, recently, like a few months ago, I was like, for 7 months, I didn't cut my hair because I couldn't get my hair cut here. So, and I did recently, like a month ago, a little over a month ago, but I've kept it long because of this. I might be going back to do this. It's a new series. And I said to her like a month before I got this role, I said, I think I could do a Western now because of the look I had. I mean, I had this beard, mustache, and the long hair. And my first audition I had a month later was for a Western.
How about
and I got the part. First audition was a FaceTime with the casting director. They recorded it, showed the producers. Then they had me come into the production office in Burbank and read for them there, and I got the part. And it was my first Western. I'm like, this look works. It's good. I'm trying to make the best of it. It's an easy thing. It's just like anything. It's an accessory. I can shave it off in a minute, cut my hair short, whatever. But that's that's the fun part about being an actor. So
I think there's a lot of grace with stuff like that right now too, because after like the cast of GH came back, so many of them had longer hair and they didn't care about continuity at all.
No,
it was
Really?
just like, yeah, I mean, at least a handful of characters were just like their hair's longer, different colors, everything. They just moved on.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So one day it was one way, and then literally the next episode was a totally different way.
Well, I mean, it was in May, because in May was the last new episode we had until August.
Right.
So we did have 3 months. It was just, yes, if you were to watch it 2 in a row, it would go from like one of the characters would have short hair to pretty long hair.
Right.
So funny. That's so funny. Well, I mean, yeah, obviously everybody, we all had our physical changes during this time.
Yes.
So, and some have that pandemic poundage that they've added too. I mean,
I was just thinking, I've gained the COVID-19.
Yes, that's right. Nobody realized that 19 was in pounds. That's all.
Right. So you mentioned that you got your start with theater and everything. Do you do a lot of that, or what kind of theater did you do?
I did a lot of theater for those 6 years. I started actually at Berkeley College of Music was my first theater production, and there was an English teacher that was there that had a theater company, that started a theater company at Berkeley. His name was Larry Brenner. We know him as Bren. He started the theater company, and he and I became friends. He was like a post-beat poet, and I was writing poetry, and I was giving him some of my poetry at the time. And we became friends. We'd go and have beers and hang out and go have lunch together after class. Great guy, and I still communicate with him, actually. And he asked me one day if I'd ever thought about acting, and I was like, you know what? I've always had a natural curiosity about it. I have always loved film. My brother and I grew up watching The Late Show and The Late Late Show when my parents were asleep, and we'd sneak downstairs till 4 a.m. with our face right up to the TV because we didn't want the volume too loud, and watch Jimmy Cagney movies and Cary Grant movies and anything that was happening at that time. So he asked me, and I said, yeah, I would love to. I'd love to try it sometime. And he had this play that he was going to be directing that was the 3-person play. It was a Jean Genet play called Death Watch. And he said, this is a great role for you. And I went home for Christmas break with the play, and I didn't even know how to approach it. I just basically was upstairs in my bedroom at home, acting out every role, in the play out loud. And my parents thought I was like having a breakdown because it was a very intense, dramatic play. It was very intense. And my character was probably the most intense of everybody. I went back and auditioned for it, and I got the part, and I just fell in love with the process of acting, of breathing life into the words of the character that was written. And I was rehearsing myself doing the same exact thing on the rooftop in Boston on the corner of Boylston and Mass Ave. There was a bank there. And from the dormitories, you can climb out a window and go onto the roof of the bank. And I was acting out every day by myself, rehearsing, doing the exact same thing, acting out the whole play and up there out loud for all of the city. And there were people in apartments across the street that could see me. I must look like a mad person up there. But I fell in love with it. And I think the reason why more than anything was that at that time, studying piano, I was oftentimes in a piano room, practice room, the size of the piano and myself. And for like 4 hours, 5 hours, sometimes 6 hours. And I started becoming very introverted and very kind of cut off socially. And I was becoming more and more so. And with acting, it was like, for me, it was kind of an epiphany for me. And it was cathartic that I found that I can open up myself emotionally like completely open myself emotionally in front of a group of people for the first time like that, on that level, especially with this character. This character was intense, as a major breakdown, and murders somebody on stage and the whole thing. It's crazy. And I fell in love with the process. I just loved it. And it just sort of like opened me up. I started then auditioning for other plays around Boston and getting them. Did other plays with my teacher also throughout the times I was at school. And I started just working a lot as an actor. And then I decided that I was going to pursue that more, and went to New York. And my first audition in New York was an eye-opener, because in Boston, if I went in for an audition, I always felt like I can get it, because I go and maybe there'd be like 7 people up for the same role. My first audition was an open call through backstage for an industrial film where they were looking for somebody that was 19 to 21 years of age. And I remember this is like shy but courageous. Okay, I was handsome, shy but courageous. I'm like, handsome is subjective, you know, but I can be shy and courageous. And I'm 19 to 21. I was around that age. So I went to the audition, took the subway, got off the subway, turned the corner, and the whole block was filled with hundreds of actors that all looked like 19 to 20, handsome, shy, but courageous. And I was stunned. And it took like 2 hours to get through the line to get in front of them. And I gave a terrible, terrible audition because I was so thrown off by it. So I realized the stakes were much higher in New York and different. So I had to really basically just become very, very disciplined and focused and more driven. And I was doing theater at 13th Street Theater for a couple of years. And I was actually living there on the dressing room floor for about 6 months with a roll-up mat. And that night, I was working lights for some of the shows and doing stuff, but I was in the dressing room every night. I'd just roll out a mat and go to sleep and wake up. My whole life was about acting at the time. So that's what I was doing, you know, just immersing myself entirely there. And I was occasionally working at the restaurants in Greenwich Village, like the Riviera Cafe. I worked there as a waiter for a while. And when I was doing plays, I would go on leave. I didn't want to be working at the same time I was focusing on a play. So I would go to the back door of the kitchen sometimes and ask the cook to give me like a burger or something. They would always sneak me a burger. So it was crazy. So yeah, that was it. But I did a lot of theater in New York, and I worked at the Public Theater, did a play there with Joseph Papp, that Des Mackinoff, who went off to become the artistic director at the La Jolla Playhouse years later, and created shows like Tommy for Broadway and also Jersey Boys. This all started at La Jolla Playhouse with Des Mackinoff, and a lot of other ones as well. Huckleberry Finn he did as well. But he did a play called The Death of Von Richthofen that he wrote, and it was a musical that I was in the ensemble, dancing and everything. And while I was doing it, I got one of the leads playing Paul McCartney in a play about John Lennon called Lennon, 2 years after his death. And
Hold
I played,
on.
What?
I have a Beatles basement.
Oh my gosh, look at this. I know. Abbey Road.
Oh my, no, but I mean like the whole way around, it's all Beatles. Okay, so you played Paul McCartney.
Mm-hmm. I played Paul McCartney. It was 2 years after the death of John Lennon.
Oh my goodness.
And I got cast in that. Mitch Weissman was the musical director, and he had played Paul McCartney in Beatlemania. He's the one that looked like Paul McCartney. And he played left-handed bass, Rickenbacker bass. And he was the musical director. I went up initially for John Lennon, to play John Lennon, and I went and played guitar, played piano, sang. They loved my audition. They said they want me to come in and read for them as Paul McCartney. I said, sure. So I went and did that. And it was between me and one other person. And they said, you have to go to Mitch's apartment, Upper West Side. He wants to meet with you and this other guy. And he just wants to have you guys play bass. And now just understand this. I never played bass before I did this play. Okay, never played bass. I was self-taught on guitar, so I was mostly a rhythm guitarist, but I knew scales and I knew some riffs and stuff. And I studied piano, so I went to school for piano, and I was trained in that. But when I went there, I went in and I was hanging out in a living room that he had, listening to the other actor that had gone there before me and listening to him play bass, and he was playing great. Okay. And he comes walking out, but he's got blonde hair. And he's like, and I'm going, oh, well, his look isn't good, but he plays bass, you know? So I go into the room And I sit down on his bed, sitting on his bed with the bass, and we're just talking, having a conversation. And all I'm doing is playing like scales while we're talking, just hanging out and just playing on the bass and doing things up and down there for about 10 minutes. Not one song, and play anything, just play riffs and stuff that I knew on my guitar. And after 10 minutes, he just looks at me and goes, I'm putting my vote in for you. You got great mobility in the bass. You got it. I'm like, oh, wow, that's great. How many songs are in this? And he says, oh, it's about 40, around 40 songs. I'm like, 40, and everything's live. Everything's live. We're not doing any recordings of anything, so everything's live. And go, oh, 40 songs. I literally walked out of that audition, went downstairs, and I stood there on the steps of his brownstone, where his apartment was, on the Upper West Side. I looked up to the heavens, and I was like, if I pull this off, it's going to be an effing miracle. And I walked off, and I said, I literally called my Uncle John, who's only about a year and a half older than me, and actually my Uncle John, who's like a third brother to me. He's the father of Lauren, who I told you about earlier, that passed away a few months ago. I called him because he was first a bass player for many years. Then he went to guitar, and he's still, to this day, he still performs. He's a great guitarist and bass player, musician. And I called him and I said, Johnny, can you help me learn these songs for this play Lennon? And he's like, yeah, I'll come after work, and we'd like take the songs off the records. That's all. We literally had the records, and I knew the song list now. So he would come up, and we'd spend like hours, him taking the bass line off of the songs, off of the record, and teaching them to me. I was playing bass like 12 to 15 hours a day, every day, learning these songs, okay? So much so that every morning my hands were so stiff that I'd have to massage them under hot water, and I'd hear them cracking, my knuckles, the whole thing. In 2 weeks, I learned every one of those 40 songs because we started rehearsal. So the first rehearsal I went in, I knew every song by heart. We get to the end of we're going into previews for the first day. And in the interim, by the way, George Martin, who I'm sure you know who George Martin is.
Yes.
His son, Greg Martin, was playing Ringo in the play. So George Martin came to one of our rehearsals and hung out with us and was showing us how to get certain sounds out of our instruments.
How did you even function? I mean, that's like...
I was like blown away. I mean, I grew up, please understand something. I'm old enough that I was living in Queens when the Beatles came to play at Shea Stadium, when they came to play at the Ed Sullivan Show. I remember when they landed at JFK in the winter, and my mother, I thought we were at Macy's, and my mother bought me a record tape. She bought me Meet the Beatles. I was like 5 years old at the time. Bought me Meet the Beatles, and it only lasted for a week because while she was cleaning the house one day, she put the album with the cover on a radiator, and I came home and the thing was melted. I was like, my Beatles album. But anyway, so I grew up with the Beatles. They were like, I remember buying the single, Hello, Goodbye, and others as well growing up, and I just like a Beatles fanatic. So George Martin shows up to the rehearsal, and I'm like in awe of the guy, and he's showing us these sounds, and he's so elegant, and he's like, dressed just beautifully. And he was answering questions of us. At one point, we all sat down, and I asked him, I said, I've read so many books now about the Beatles, about their history, the biographies about them, but there are some that contradict each other about certain periods and things that happened historically. Mm-hmm. And he said, you want to know something? He said, there's not one that's completely accurate. And he said, I'll never forget this, he said, and that makes me question that if we can't get history right in 15 years, how are we to trust the history of antiquity? And I thought about that. I'm like, he's right. I mean, it was about 15 years at the time when we were doing the play. The play was 1982, so we're talking about a 15, 20-year period, and not one of them was accurate. So anyway, the first performance that we had in front of a live audience, the preview, I was like, I couldn't believe I'm about to do this play, and I never played bass before, and I pulled Mitch Weissman aside and I said, I want to tell you a story. I told him when I came to your house, I had never played bass before. I'd never played bass. And he's like, are you kidding me? I said, no, I learned it all in 2 weeks because we started rehearsal 2 weeks later when you gave me the song list. And I'm like, I'm just sharing that with you. And I like literally looked up and I was like, thank you. And it was an amazing experience. I loved it. And Sid Bernstein had produced the play. Sid Bernstein produced the Shea Stadium concert. I believe it was that or the Carnegie Hall concert. I can't remember. He saw the play in Liverpool and he brought it to New York. And I was cast. Robert Lapone and also David Patrick Kelly played John Lennon. David Patrick Kelly played him in the Hamburg years and the older years as Robert Lapone. Yeah, it was a great cast. Bill Sadler was in it. I'm trying to remember others. Catherine Borowitz. She was John Turturro's wife. She was in it. Yeah, it was great. It was really amazing. That was a great experience doing that. So yeah, that was my Beatles, my tribute to John Lennon. And it was an amazing show. We had standing ovations every single night. The audience loved it. We did it at a theater that's no longer there. It's now a Cineplex on 11th Street and 2nd Avenue. It was an old Yiddish theater. It was beautiful, 1,200 seat house. And we were going to take it to Broadway, but then Sid Bernstein had miscalculated and felt because there was a play about John Lennon, he didn't have to do any advertising. And in time, people were like, oh, I didn't even know the play was even still on. I'm not seeing anything about it. And then we lost audience because it wasn't being advertised. And then it was too late to bring it back. So we had to end the show, unfortunately. It was what it was.
Bring it back.
It was fantastic. It was an amazing show. It really was. Very, very special. Loved it. So anyway, cool.
Think I could find it on YouTube?
I don't think so. I don't think it was never recorded. I have actually a cassette recording of one of our rehearsals that was recorded through the soundboard. So it's a good sound. I haven't listened to it in probably 20 plus years.
Yeah.
I have it somewhere. I do have it somewhere. I think Mitch Weissman gave it to me, which is pretty cool. So maybe one of these days I'll have it transferred over to a flash drive or something like that, so I can put it on my computer and you could listen to the sounds of it. It was fun. It was a really fun show. So,
yeah. What was your favorite song to play?
In the show, one of my favorite moments was during the Let It Be sessions, and when John and Paul got into an argument, and John walked out with Yoko. I walked up to the grand piano on stage by myself. It was empty stage, and I walked up and I played Golden Slumbers on the piano and sang, "You never gave me your money, you only gave me your funny papers," that whole thing. Mm-hmm. So that was fun. I mean, do I have a favorite song? I mean, A Day in the Life. I love A Day in the Life. Oh, yeah. But there's so many Beatles songs.
But like in the play, that was your favorite moment.
Yeah, that was a fun moment because it was a solo moment, me playing on the piano and singing a beautiful song. And yeah, that was great. That was a fun moment in the play for me, So, yeah. And it was all, and doing all the early stuff and, shaking the head thing, talking like Paul McCartney sounds like it's a head cold all the time, like that. I haven't done it in a while. I was actually better with John talking like that because it's got that nasally voice, bloody hell, like that.
That was really good.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, but I'm a little out of practice and I've been talking for over an hour, so my voice is a little tired right now. Sorry. So, but anyway. So.
Sorry, I totally took us down a rabbit hole.
What was that?
I said, I'm sorry, I totally took us down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, it was a fantastic play. I had a great time. But it's been a long time. I haven't done a lot of theater. I did a play with Walt Willey. He invited me to come. He was every summer he would do a play in his hometown in Illinois, and he would bring like an actor from the show occasionally here and there. And he asked if I would do Harvey with him. The play Harvey, that was the Jimmy Stewart play, and he played Harvey. He directed it, and I did that with him, and that was a lot of fun. I had a great time. We did it for a few weeks. Yeah, and I did a play, Sherilyn Walter, who used to be on General Hospital many years ago. She lives in Hawaii now, and she asked me years ago if I would come to Hawaii and do an adaptation of a Mark Twain. It was like 2 short stories he did about the diaries of Adam and the diaries of Eve, Adam and Eve. And she had combined the two, or a writer had combined the two as an adaptation of the Diary of Adam and Eve. And it was a 2-person play. And she asked if I would come to Hawaii, to Oahu, and perform that for 2 weeks. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Hawaii? You had me at Hawaii. Yeah, absolutely. So I went there and did that with her, and that went great as well. It was and we did at different locations around Oahu for the 2 weeks that we did it. We went and rehearsed a week and then put it together. So I love stuff like that. I love being able to go and do some live performance, and I have a great time doing that. That's a lot of fun. because it's immediate. You're there with the audience and you're going through it exactly at the same time as them. And the reaction is exactly in the same time. It's different from when I first started working in television after doing 6 years of theater. You're working in your own little black hole there, and you don't know how it's playing until the audience sees it weeks later, sometimes months later. Days of Our Lives was 6 months later. So you just don't know how things are playing. It's different. And you get the immediacy when you do the personal appearances and you get to meet people in face to face and hear what their favorite stories are and what's going on. But it's very different from theater. Theater, it's happening right then. You know it, it's funny. I'm going to end this with one fun story that Eileen Hurley, do you know Eileen Hurley was on the show? Played Myrtle. Mm-hmm. She played Myrtle on the show. And, we were very fortunate to have someone like Eileen, who was a grande dame of theater. Speaking of theater, she worked with, Laurence Olivier, with Richard Burton, with Peter O'Toole. She really was a grande dame. She did Hamlet in the 40s with Laurence Olivier. She was directed by Gielgud. She played Hamlet's mother in the 40s when she was in her 20s. And then she played Hamlet's mother again with Richard Burton on stage in the 60s. Oh, that was the one that was directed by Gielgud. And so she's an amazing woman. And she shared this. I love old stories of theater. And she told me this story one day while we were sitting on set. I was asking about her theater life, and I asked her about any fun stories. She said, I was doing a play on Broadway with Peter O'Toole and Richard Harris. And now everybody knows that Peter O'Toole and Richard Harris were known for their drinking escapades. They would drink like crazy, all right? And she said that one day we did a matinee performance, and in between the matinee and the evening performance, the two of them went out and got very drunk. So they go on stage for the evening performance, and she's on stage with Peter O'Toole, and he's kind of stumbling his lines a little bit. He's wavering a little bit, and he walks down to the proscenium, the front of the stage, and he trips. He falls face first towards the audience, and he looks up at this woman who's sitting in the front row, and he's like, "Hello, madam," and she's looks at him, and she probably could smell it. She says loudly, she goes, "Oh my God, he's drunk." And he says, "Madam, if you think I'm drunk, wait till you see Richard." I was like, what a great story. I love stories like that, Yeah. Then we had Ruth Warwick on the show, who was the last living member of the Mercury Theater, who did Citizen Kane with everybody there. And we had some amazing people on that show. It was pretty extraordinary working with people like David Canary every day, who was a master and just a wonderful salt of the earth type of person. Yeah, so many wonderful people, and Susan certainly, James Mitchell also, so many people were just fantastic people to work on that show with, and I'm grateful for the time that I had the opportunity to do it, especially since it was only supposed to be for 3 months. So
right. Exactly.
So anyway. All right, guys, I think that's good, right? You good?
Yes, thank you so much for your time. This was great.
Don't forget what you like. You'll put it on as a podcast. It's 15 minutes. It's he spoke too long.
No, it'll be longer. Don't worry.
It's funny.
Is there anything? So you mentioned the Western. Is that ready to be announced? Do you have a name or a release date?
I did announce it once, and I was told that they asked me not to say it yet because they're not advertising it. They're still filming. It's a series, and it's going to be out sometime in the beginning of the year. Okay. But it was a great experience, and it's the characters are real people from the Wild West. It's about them. And my character was great. I had a great time doing it. And it's very topical. It's a very interesting story, the story. So maybe when it happens, I'll be happy to come back and talk with you guys about it.
And we'll keep our eyes open for it. But thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, ladies. I appreciate it. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Amanda. It was a blessing. I appreciate it so much.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, I love him.
Now you're going to go back to All My Children, and I can't get
He said I have to work up 41 years. I have to catch up.
He did. I tried watching him in the other soaps, and I know he listed his other characters that he loves, but I just loved the All My Children David character. You have to see him when he was dating Erica Kane. He hung out with all those girls. There was quite an age span there that he was being friendly with.
We should have talked about it when we were talking about Rebecca Budig, because he was with her on All My Children. Mm-hmm. So if she came back to GH and he came over to GH, but she came back as Hayden, it'd be like that whole Silas Clay thing again with the, you look really familiar.
But I can't place it.
Yeah.
I don't think you're a vampire.
Think about this. Okay. Think about this. It's couple swapping.
Yeah.
Because David and Anna, Finn and
Oh, right.
Hayden, Finn and
There you go.
Yep.
So it's okay.
And then, I mean, it was David and Greenlee, but
right.
still, they've all kissed each other.
Right.
Well, they, you know what I'm saying.
I do. They would work it out. We would be okay with that. I really think he should come to GH now.
I do.
Your
I like my
storyline makes
idea.
sense. Yeah,
It does.
your storyline makes sense. And
he would have removed that memory because it was so painful for Anna to remember.
yeah,
And that's why we
I'm
don't
with you.
talk about Leora.
Yeah.
I kind of like that name though.
No, it's a little too different.
It's different enough that it's not weird though. It's the same thing as like Leera.
Yeah. Okay. We all know my kids' names are so traditional. There's 100 of them in every classroom. So I just don't do different names. So I did think it was interesting that his real life daughter is Arya, because I had never heard that name until everyone started naming their kid that from what's the TV show that everybody loves with the dragons?
I don't know.
Oh my god, it's like the most popular show. It just ended like a couple months ago, a year ago. Come on, you know,
Game of Thrones?
thank you. Like with the dragons, yes. Game of Thrones.
Okay,
There's Arya
keep in
on
mind,
there.
I'm thinking, okay, here's where I'm thinking though. You don't know adult shows.
Oh, no,
So
no,
I'm
no.
thinking
Well,
you're
that's
talking
why I
about a
don't-
cartoon show with Madeline, who's 7, and I'm like, my baby is 17. It's been quite some time
No,
since
no,
I've had
no.
to know a cartoon.
No, if it was a cartoon name, I would have known it like that.
That's
the
why I
problem.
was like, I don't know, Amanda.
Yeah.
Like, what is it?
There you go. Game of Thrones. There's Arya. on
Never
Game of
watched it.
Thrones.
Oh, is there?
So, yes.
Okay.
And that's why the kids, Madeline's age, are named Arya, is because of that show. Or like a little younger than her.
Interesting.
Yeah. So,
Well, she is not that age.
no, she's not that age. I did love that as much as he loved talking about his characters, that his face lit up the most when he was talking about his kids.
Oh, yeah.
So
He's such
cute.
a proud dad.
So cute.
Yep.
Which is also funny because they talked in All My Children about whenever Anna was pregnant, him being excited that that was going to be his kid. And in one of his other roles that I watched, they were revealing that so-and-so said it wasn't his kid, but it was. And he was like, oh, I'm so excited. And I was like, wow, you're really happy to have these babies everywhere. So
Maybe he was able, well, we should, I don't want to ask him. We should have or whatever. But I wonder if he had found out that he was going to become a father because
matching this timeline.
the way that he was talking about their ages could have matched up.
could have.
Oh my gosh, that would have made it even so much harder to be going through the All My Children storyline than if you were. So I'm going to hope that it was after.
Yeah.
Like a year.
Yeah.
So he could have just channeled. I remember how excited I was to find out I was a dad.
Well, he said that the one was a newborn when they were offering him to extend his
That's
contract.
right. Yeah.
So that would have been like a couple years later before the storyline with Anna.
Yes.
So he should have been okay. I did look up originally how old his kids were. No, I don't know it. But
That's
anyway,
okay.
No, that was just a wonderful interview. He's so
It was
nice.
fantastic. And if you're, well, obviously you're a General Hospital fan if you're listening to this podcast, since it's a General Hospital fan podcast. That was also our first non-GH
Yeah.
interview.
It went really well, too.
It did.
There you
I
go.
mean, we kind of veered off with Anna on All My Children, but I love being able to talk to him about it.
Yes.
So let's bring him. Okay. I will say it as a diehard Finn fan.
Wow, that's big.
I would entertain
Wow.
seeing that happen.
Wow. I know that's very hard
Them
for you.
fighting.
Right.
You know, and
Right, they have
seeing
to win her
but
heart.
I would really be I've never been a fan of the Finn versus Robert thing because
No.
for me it doesn't feel that way.
No, because
You know, but
we've
for
said this
David
before.
and
Robert's
Finn,
done. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
All right. Wow. That's a big step for you, Shannon.
It is.
I'm impressed. Good job.
Especially if Hayden came back and then David's like, hey, she's cute.
No.
No. Okay.
No, he needs to be with Anna.
They did have really good chemistry.
They did.
It was very good.
All for it.
Yes. So join us on Monday as we talk about this week's episodes,
And have a good weekend.
and we'll meet you at the pier.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, we invite you to go to peer54podcast.com to subscribe on your favorite platform. Don't forget to leave us a review.
And you can also follow us on many social media channels. Just search for Peer 54 Podcast. Also, we are not perfect, so if there is something that we missed or messed up, just let us know by emailing us at peer54podcast@gmail.com.
Pay attention. The ferry leaves at 10 a.m. Roads are busy.
Great.
Dad, pack the boot.
Yeah.
Rosie, got your teddy?
Uh-huh.
Honey, how's the car?
Windows clean, car wax
I
cup.
meant the tyres.
Oh, sorted them at Quick Fit last week.
Brilliant.
Planning the perfect getaway this summer? Make sure your tyres are up for the job. Book today at quickfit.com or your local centre. Quick Fit. Drive away happy every time.